Hi class, today we're going to be reviewing finding slope. We will be hitting a unit where we are finding slope and writing equations of lines. I'm not sure how well you are with finding slope, so this is why I'm taking the time to go through it. So we're looking at slope. It's the rate of change between any 2 points that's represented by the variable m. It describes the slope of the line or the depthness or the steepness of the line. There are 4 different slopes. You have your positive slope, your negative slope, your zero slope. Now, your zero slope means that your outcome after you solve it is exactly 0. Your undefined slope will be when you get the error on your calculator. Now, because you're doing this without a calculator, if you can divide 0 by a number. So you can have 0 at the top and divide by a number. That'll give you the outcome of 0. If you have a number divided by 0, then that's going to be your undefined slope, okay? So your slope here would be undefined. All right, let's go ahead and try doing our calculation. So this is the slope formula. Like the distance formula, you are going to label it x1, y1, and x2, y2, and then plug it into our formula here. Remember to always simplify your answer. So I'm going to go through, and I'm going to label the first point x1, y1, and then x2, y2. So x1, y1, and x2, y2. All right, according to the formula, I have to take y2 first and subtract y1 from it, and then do the same thing with the x's. If I do this, we get 3 minus 1 and then 4 minus 1. Well, 3 minus 1 is 2, and then 4 minus 1 is 3. So your slope is 2/3. So we're going to write 2/3 for our slope. Your classification, the way you're going to classify it, this is going to be a positive slope. Okay? Now, we talked about this with the distance formula. The question was, does it matter if I go through and I flip them? So if I call that x2, y2 and x1, y1, it doesn't. If I take the same question and I plug in my information, I'm going to have at the top 1 minus 3 and then 1 minus 4. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. A negative and a negative makes it a positive. So it's okay if you interchange the whole point, right? The subscript, that little 2 is what needs to be consistent so that when you're plugging them in, you plug them in correctly. So as long as you don't label it x1, y2, you're fine. So it has to be x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay. I'm going to label it with the 1 first. If y'all want to label it the other way, that's fine. So x1, y1, x2, y2. For our formula here, we're going to do the y2 first. So 11 minus 19, and then 2 minus 4. 11 minus 19 is negative 8. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. A negative and a negative makes it a positive. Good. So then what is 8 divided by 2? Should be 4. So your slope is 4. And is this a positive or negative slope? This is a positive slope. All right, I'm going to go ahead and give you a moment to go ahead and try the practice. All right, so let's go ahead and go on. So we should have labeled it, for the most of us, x1, y1, x2, y2. And again, you could have done it the other way. The other way is fine as well. This is going to be negative 3 minus 2, and then 7 minus a negative 5. So be careful with that negative, because the minus symbol is part of the formula. The negative is with the number, so just be careful with your negatives. The double negative is going to make it a positive. So now we have negative 5 over 12. Can we reduce that? No, so I'm going to leave it as negative 5 over 12, and this is a negative, right? It's a negative slope. All right, let's look at B. So again, x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go through. I'm going to do my y2. That's 5 minus a negative 4. And then my x2 is -5, and then x1 is a -3, so minus a -3. So again, that double negative, make sure you turn it into a positive. So 5 plus 4 is 9, and -5 plus 3 is -2. The negative can move just in front. The negative can be interchangeable. If you want to make that the negative and that the positive, it's fine. The slope itself is just negative, okay? So it's just -9/2, and this is a negative slope. All right, when you're ready, we'll go over to the back side. All right, so the only difference between the front side and the back side is now we're just looking at graphs and tables. It doesn't matter, class. You pick two you want. So I'm going to pick the one with the 0 and the one with the 1. I'm going to keep my number small. So it's important that when you do this, though, write it out. So -1, -7 is what you picked, or I picked, right? And then 0, -10. So then x1, y1, x2, y2. So the reason I want you to label it like this or write it out is because I want to make sure you don't make a mistake with your numbers there. So plugging it into our formula, we got y2 minus y1, right? That's y2 minus y1. So we have -10 minus a -7. And then we have 0 minus a -1. Double negatives turn into a positive. So your slope is going to be -3/1. Well, -3/1 can also be written as -3. And this is a negative slope. All right, now looking at the picture, you can already classify what you're going to have. This is going to be a positive or negative slope. All right, if you're unsure, you read your graphs from the left to the right. So I'm going to start at this point. I'm reading it going to the right side, and it's following it going down. So this is going to be a negative slope. All right, now you're going to pick 2 points. So you have to remember how to read your coordinates, okay? I'm going to pick the point -1, 1, so I'm going to write it out, -1, 1, and then I'm going to pick another point. I'm going to pick 0, -2. Again, try to keep your number small. All right, so if you notice, I didn't pick this one. That's not at a good intersection, neither is that one. You want to pick one that's at a nice, whose coordinates are at whole numbers, so at perfect intersection. So anywhere where they're meeting at an exact whole number. All right, so x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to have -2 minus 1, and then 0 minus a -1. Double negatives turn into a positive. So this is going to be -3/1. So your slope should be -3. Is that what we estimated it to be? We did. Good. So then we're good. You got your slope and you have your classification. All right, let me go ahead and give you a moment to go and try the bottom two. All right, so you're going to pick 2 numbers. I'm going to pick 0, 3, and 1, 3. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to write them out. So x1, y1, x2, y2. We should have had 3 minus 3 over 1 minus 0. 3 minus 3 is 0. And then we have a 1. 0 divided by 1. Go back to the front page, right? What did I say? If I have 0 divided by 1, what should your slope be? Your slope should be 0. This is a 0 slope. All right, so you don't need the calculator. You just have to remember where the 0 is, right? If it's on top, you should get a 0. Use your notes. All right, let's look at the next one. So I'm going to pick 0, -2. And I'm going to pick 4, 0. All right, so if you pick those, good. If you didn't, it's okay. We should all come out with the same answer. So x1, y1, and then x2, y2. So this one should be 0 minus a -2, and then 4 minus 0. Double negatives turn into a positive. So your m should be 2/4. That reduces. Remember, always reduce if possible. What goes into 2 and into 4? 2 does, right? They can both be divisible or divided by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Is this a positive slope or a negative slope? this one should be positive. Again, you read your graphs from left, from this point to the right. So to the right, I'm going up. So that's a positive direction, okay? So I left you on assignment. It is reviewing all this, right? So it's slope. You are doing it without a calculator. So those of you that own a calculator, do not use your calculator. All right, I want you to practice your addition, being able to do things without a calculator is what I want you to practice. At the back, though, on the back side, you're going to be practicing your ability to do linear pairs and vertical angles, supplementary angles, and complementary angles. Now, we might have a new student, depending on what period you're in. If you have a new student in the class, kind of check on them with the geometry piece, which is the last piece. They might have missed when we talked about linear and vertical. And then my new kids, it's okay to ask your neighbor, okay? All right, hopefully you get this done before we leave. Good luck.